Ed Sealover, senior reporter with the Denver Business Journal. Thanks for coming back on the Business Brief.
Thanks for having me again, Ryan.
Always good to have you, Ed. Ed, according to newly released FBI statistics, crime rose nearly 9% in Colorado between 2019 and 2020, the fifth highest increase in the country. Increased crime clearly continues to persist throughout the metro area. In a recent report you wrote for the DBJ, in the commercial core of Colorado's largest city, both violent and property crimes remain on an upward trajectory. Some businesses are reporting closing, at times temporarily, at times permanently. Clearly, crime has been on the rise, and we know it has implications for customers, workers, businesses, small and large alike. Can you tell us more about what the data suggests is happening and how it's impacting business?
Yeah, and I'll say, I don't normally cover crime until crime started affecting business. And this is the first time in the 12 years I've been at the DBJ, I'm really hearing a lot about my business can't operate because of what's going on right now. Just one store owner downtown, for example, who has stores, retail stores throughout the metro area, said he has to close his sports fan shops downtown up to 3 or 4 days a week because people will not work there. People will drive to Park Meadows or up to Flatirons to work in his stores, but will not go downtown because they feel unsafe there. This is what's happened. Now, if you look at the numbers, and we crunched the numbers and found that property and violent crime, for example, has risen 50% in the downtown area and in the Denver Union Station area between 2016 and 2021. The stories are out there of people harassing people on the streets, of people walking in with open machetes into stores to rob them. This isn't just shoplifting anymore. And business owners are feeling this desperation of what can I do? Because it goes beyond just the idea of, okay, my shop is being targeted. There are a number of businesses that typically wouldn't think about crime who are reluctant to bring employees back downtown because their employees, particularly female employees, are saying, I don't feel comfortable coming and working in downtown in the current atmosphere. And that has a domino effect because if you talk to most metro leaders, one of the reasons crime is up is it's more obvious. There are less people downtown. There's a significant amount of less people downtown than there was pre-pandemic at this point. And not being able to bring workers back downtown kind of gives that freedom, if you will, that people worry about for these criminals to be out there and committing things and doing robberies and doing drugs in the public because there's not so many people around them. And so if people aren't coming back downtown, we can't get the crowds that'll probably cut back on some of this activity, and it just spirals from there.
Yeah. You mentioned, Ed, violent and property crimes have risen, whether it's downtown Denver, Capitol Hill, 5 Points, Central Park, from Aurora to Lakewood throughout the metro area. I want to just take an additional minute or so and talk about what you're hearing as to why this crime is rising. And you know, in your article, there's a circle of blame, as you call it. Can you expand on that?
Yeah, I think that everybody will say, look, crime has been affected by the pandemic. You isolate people, behavior gets worse, and there's no doubt that without the pandemic, we probably don't see some of this. But beyond there's a number of reasons. Police in particular point to 2 bills that passed in the 2019 legislative session that knocked down from felonies to misdemeanors possession of any amount of drugs that are 4 grams or less, and also knocked a number of other crimes down and prohibited cash bonds for crimes that are not at least a class 3 misdemeanor. Now, police say this has led to a cycle where they will maybe arrest somebody and immediately have to release them, or maybe they won't even arrest them. They'll just give them a summons and say, here, show up in court because we can't hold you anymore. And they say at one point they can cite someone who committed 4 crimes in 18 hours that they could not hold because none of them met the level for being arrested. Meanwhile, you have legislative leaders who passively say, no, this isn't our fault. We didn't tell them that they can't bring people in. And in fact, many of the judges, Representative Leslie Herod, who's been one of the spearheads of the criminal justice reform in the Capitol, says, look, judges are having the problems here. They're the ones that are not putting bonds on people. We didn't restrict certain crimes from being bonded. And she thinks the judges need to do their job. Whereas we had just two bonds. Common Sense Institute study found that there were just two bonds of $1 or less pre-pandemic in 2019 that were given to people. There were 500 plus in both 2021 and 2021. And these are the things that people say need to be fixed. Meanwhile, mayors are looking up and saying, what can we do? At this point, we're having a hard time recruiting and retaining police as well, because the profession, especially after the George Floyd killing, has been demonized in some ways. And they say, if we can't put people on the streets, we can't enforce things as much just because we don't have the bodies to do it. So everyone is looking at each other saying, we need some help. And there's no clear answers on the horizon.
Makes a lot of sense in terms of that circle of blame. Everything from, as you mentioned, Ed, the pandemic. Sure, I'm sure that's been a contributor. Looks like, or sounds like some in the law enforcement community believe that the legislative climate has kind of created this increased crime that we've seen throughout Colorado, the metro area. Certainly, homelessness continues to be an issue for a lot of businesses as well. And I do think, to the point you made earlier, the increased scrutiny that a lot of law enforcement has received over the past year, 2 year plus, not just with the George Floyd death, but with other incidents that have happened throughout Colorado and the country. I think that personally that there's probably some reluctance by some in law enforcement to know the extent to which they can fully do their job. And perhaps, many of those who do commit serious violent and property crimes feel they're a little more empowered at this point to go out and do some of these things. So it's probably this hodgepodge of issues that are all contributing to the rise in crime. And, certainly I think everyone can point fingers, but the reality is how do we solve it? Which kind of leads me into the next question. With the governor and Colorado Democrats having rolled out a reported $113 million package to combat crime, what more can you tell us about that? And how is the business community responding to the proposals?
The business community doesn't have a ton of response so far, and it works in with the idea that right now the governor and legislative Democrats, who are in the majority in both chambers, have put this forward. And yet the Colorado Association of Chiefs of Police and the sheriffs of Colorado have declined to take a position on it because they don't see where this is helping them yet. The package focuses a lot on giving grants to local communities to do two things. One, to recruit and retain officers better, both to recruit a more diverse workforce and also to recruit where they need, to have special money to fill the roles they can't fill or keep people in. But there's also an effort in there to target specific high crime areas with innovative programs and try to reduce the crime in those areas. I don't think anybody disagrees with any of these ideas. And I think a lot of these you'll probably see go through unanimously. The question is whether they're enough. $113 million over 2 years is a drop in the bucket in the state's general budget. A number of law enforcement officers and some Republicans say, no, what we've got to do is we've got to go back and we've got to redo the 2019 bills that I mentioned earlier. And in order to do that, to lock people up more, to get some of these criminals off the street is what the issue is here. And if you talk to police, they like to say, yes, the bills were targeted at the one-time offenders that, no, we probably shouldn't be holding in jail. But when you have a certain class of people that are going to commit crimes over and over and over again, and these are often people who are addicted to drugs, who may have behavioral health issues, we've actually got to detain them to stop the crime we're seeing here. There is also money in this package for behavioral health, whether that be school-based or in the community, or frankly to replicate programs like Denver's STAR program, where in certain calls you're going to send out licensed care workers and behavioral health therapists rather than police, or often with police, because these are situations that are not criminal, but somebody who has behavioral health issues acting up in public. Again, nobody disputes that's where we need to go. The question is whether this is enough. And right now, there's a big chasm in terms of who thinks the $113 million package is enough and who doesn't.
From where I sit in my perch viewing the business community and just our community in general, and certainly whatever the case, we need solutions that actually work. And I certainly hope both legislators and law enforcement and the community and business folks alike can come together to find some solutions. I think it also further underscores how societal challenges and economic problems can go hand in hand, both affect the other, and that it's important to remember that as we move forward in terms of not only the solutions we put forth, but ultimately how we work together to address them, to move our economy forward, and to ensure we have businesses that feel empowered, workers who feel like they can go to work safely, and ultimately customers who can be served efficiently. Ed Sealover with the Denver Business Journal, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for the conversation, Ryan.